It's been a very hard but productive conversation. The Governor of the great state of Colorado, the Honorable Bill Ritter.
Thank you, Representative Rice and Senator Gibbs. Thank you as well, Commissioner Foy, for your participation in this long conversation, and to Joe Blake and to the members of the Chamber. We really appreciate that. This has been a very long conversation. We appointed the Blue Ribbon Commission, and they began their work in June of 2007. They brought their initial report back in January of 2008, and it was clear to me that this was going to be the product of a longer conversation if we wanted to do this and do it with bipartisan support. And so last June, as the commission was about to expire by my executive order, I went to the commission members and asked them if they would re-up. They would continue being a part of this, and they agreed to do that. They agreed to do that because I think they understand what they said in their report, and what I think Joe Blake so eloquently said today is that when they initially issued that report, they called it a quiet crisis. As we have lost funding, as we've gone into this economic downturn, this is, I believe, no longer really appropriately called a quiet crisis. This is something where we have a very significant downturn in transportation funding, and at the same time, very serious concerns that relate to the safety of roads and bridges. At a minimum, the need to maintain those roads and bridges with a revenue stream differently than we do today. Those panel members agreed to remain on. They did work around the state. They conducted outreach tours around the state in September and October. And then I went to a guy named Mike Shirotis, who's both a friend of mine and a former law partner, and asked him to really lead this other coalition to look at the best way that people outside this building could think about how we put together an omnibus bill. So it wasn't just a conversation about how we raise new revenue, but a medium-term and a long-term conversation that asked this question: where do we want to head in this state? And what are the different ways we want to do it? And that's why you see three different parts to this bill, and I think, again, Representative Rice talked about that. So it is about looking at a new revenue stream, but it is also about asking the question, what kinds of innovative finance is available out there to really develop multimodal corridors, not unlike what we were able to do with T-Rex. And then finally, to really ask the question, in addition to that, what about a long-term strategy? What kinds of pilots can we put in place to begin to investigate long-term strategies? So I just completed this several town and city tour post-State of the State, where we visited many places around the state. I have different regions that I still will visit next month or so, just to talk about the state of the state outside of this building. But again and again, our conversations turn to transportation. If you're in Moffat County and you're in Craig, Colorado, you're worried about Highway 13. You're worried about the safety of that. You're worried about the condition of that. If you're in other places, it might be about congestion in Fort Collins or Loveland. In other places, again, it is about the bridges themselves. We call structurally deficient, and there's a category that's structurally deficient that's actually poor, and that's the 125 bridges that we're talking about. So it is incumbent upon us as the people of this state to understand we need to deliver a different method of funding for transportation, and we need to have a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term strategy. Finally, I'll say this. In no economic development conversation that I've had over the 2 years of being governor has the issue of transportation not been a part of the conversation. People want to know the condition of your roads and your bridges. They care about that. The folks who are thinking about expanding opportunities, job opportunities here, moving companies in, they ask about the education system and the transportation system. So while this is about safety, while it is about putting people to work and about economic recovery, it is also about our ability to really grow in a sensible way in the 21st century with industries that are 21st century industry, which care very much about transportation. So to all the people who have been involved in this, in moving this conversation to where we are today, I really thank you. On behalf of the people of the state, we very much thank you. We now take this bill, we vet it through the legislative process, or work with the legislators, and again, very much hope that at the end of the day, we have a different way of a sustainable funding for transportation and a vision of a long-term way in which we can move toward really funding transportation in a 21st century way. With that, we thank everybody who is in attendance, and we'll open it up to questions. Charles.
Governor, $250 billion, woefully inadequate for the problem said $500 million to $1.5 billion. It doesn't replace the HETF. I mean, what else are we not seeing here?
We're seeing a proposal that has been the product of a lot of people sitting and talking about it and understanding that in order for us to be able to move a package through this legislature, it has to be meaningful dollars, and we think that $250 million is that. The ability to bond against that actually leverages that $250 million a year and grows our opportunities with respect to that, but still at the same time makes it something that's doable.
Governor, do you consider this just the first step? I mean, $250 million, is there going to be more to come? Is there eventually going to have to be a ballot measure on this as well?
Well, I mean, again, this is where we are. The reason we put in other things in this bill besides just a new revenue stream was to really allow us to be innovative and to investigate the ability to use public-private partnerships, to use other kinds of innovative financing methods, and at the end of the day, to really study what it would be in a pilot basis to study if there's a way for us as a state to move to impact fees, so that you're really measuring impact of a vehicle on the roadway or in the transportation system and building a transportation system that's more like that, that's not dependent upon a fuel tax that's now 17 years old.
I think this $250 million is the minimum that would be meaningful for during negotiations.
Well, we're going to move this through the legislature. This is a dollar figure that is absolutely meaningful in addressing the needs of this state. We very much hope that this is where we come out at the end of the day, and we believe, really, again, that it's necessary for us to fund roads and bridges at the level that we've identified in this bill because of how the Transportation Commission, the Blue Ribbon Commission worked at looking at really what the need was as assessed by CDOT and a lot of other people who worked on it as well.
There are no Republicans who spoke today. Where are the Republicans on this issue? Who is expected to get on board?
Well, we're talking to them, and that's what I said at the beginning. I've met with Republican leadership, and we believe that the door is open for this conversation. We're open to their ideas, quite frankly. We've not foreclosed ideas. We don't think this is a place where it's only a Democratic or a Republican idea. We think it very much has to be a Colorado idea and a Colorado solution. So I'm very hopeful that there will be bipartisan support, and that will be the process that we'll entertain now as we move forward. But I've had, I think, very productive conversations with Republican leadership here.